We've got a number of questions coming in that respond to the various levels at which the presenters have pitched their comments. We've heard from Minister Carr about what it means at a provincial, departmental level to take leadership, to move a big agenda forward. Calvin has posed some challenging questions for us about the context, the broader context in which to make political and policy choices to advance inclusive education, but a context which is becoming increasingly challenging given the inevitable political conflicts that there are going to be over limited resources for very pressing needs, whether it's health, education, or others. And Bendina's given us a very clear picture of what it takes to begin moving this agenda forward in the context of resource constraint, which boards of education across this country are dealing with. So let's pick up just a couple of, well, more than a couple, hopefully. We have just over half an hour to continue our conversation. And I think I would like to begin with some questions that have come in about this challenge that we're facing on the resource side, and then I want to move into some questions about how to deal with how to move this agenda forward at the local level. So given that our strategies are inevitably constrained by resource limitations, maybe we can start with you, Minister Carr, in responding to Calvin's, I think, pretty insightful analysis of the multiple challenges faced in moving an agenda forward. So you have a mandate to move forward, make yet further advances on inclusive education. But the demographics are pretty clear. You're going to be sitting across the cabinet table from a Minister of Health who is putting some pretty stark figures and needs on the table in the years going forward. How do you deal with this fact when we know that inclusive education, while it is a matter of principle and value, is certainly also a matter of resources?
It's a very good comment. It's a very good question. It's something that is probably not necessarily a new issue over the years. Resources have been a battle in the past, and Calvin's very right about the real fiscal challenges that all provinces and all jurisdictions are seeing. I compare it to the quadrant, important and urgent. And healthcare is seen as an urgent need, but investing in our children for the future of our country and our provinces is very important. So how do you wrestle with something that's urgent and at the same time trying to get ahead and making sure we're investing in what's important? In our province, healthcare has $2.5 billion of the budget, and education is $1 billion. We're nearly 20% of the budget. So very clearly, we're second on the heels of healthcare, and as Calvin mentioned, the demographics. But in order for us to get out of or to go forward as a key to our future, we do need to invest. It's very difficult, though, when you're dealing with urgent sickness issues and demographics. Now, what we've done is a number of provinces are doing this now. We've amalgamated early childhood development in with education. So we will be looking at some of our partners in Canada to see some of the strengths and weaknesses of that, and looking to build on early intervention and encouraging learning at an early age. Now, back to the resources. What we have tried to do here in New Brunswick in terms of the Department of Education, we have $1 billion. What I've argued is, do we require $1.5 billion? Do we require $2 billion in education? Or, in the time of fiscal restraint, how do we best prioritize the dollars we are spending? And one one advantage of having a fiscal challenge is forcing a focus on priorities, and we need to make sure, though, that they're the right priorities, obviously, and there's difference of opinions on that. And how I'm encouraging the process to unfold in our own sector is to encourage partnerships, encourage relationship building amongst the Teachers Federation, amongst the CUPE, amongst parents and other community organizations, and that everyone must look at prioritizing cost savings and be open-minded to change and remain, or to build outside of our silos, and that this has got to be protected funding for such and such. We need to look at how we can collaborate in providing the best impact for our children in the classroom, and how do we do that? And we have to put down the barriers and the silos, I believe, of protecting our own self-interest in all of those organizations, and ensuring that we put the children first. But in order to do that, we need to be collaborative and working together. And we've set up some processes here in New Brunswick to start a relationship-building collaborative process of working together.
And I appreciate that, and I think that's definitely the way to go, but can you, in that process, ensure that some bottom lines are met? We've seen far too many times, I think, that in those processes, those that don't have the loudest voice tend to lose out, and students with intellectual disabilities, the case has been made that really, investing in this this group of the population, when we've got such resource constraints, doesn't make economic sense. We need to invest in the so-called brightest and best if we're going to secure Canada's leadership in a global economy. So how do you protect, are there some bottom lines that you can establish in those partnership and consultative processes so that some groups don't fall off the table?
Well, I think it does start at the top, and values, being open-minded, but at values, making sure that inclusion is something that's protected and built upon, and that's certainly the criteria that I've set as we've had open collaborative processes where inclusion is here in New Brunswick, and we're going to build upon it. And how do we best do that with our time of fiscal restraint? In our Department of Education, our own staff have said perhaps instead of having 147 priorities, we focus down onto a dozen priorities. And I think another final point would be that we need to broaden what we mean by inclusion. And I know this is a continual discussion, but we need to broaden what we mean by inclusion. And what I am building upon is the word diversity, and that when we talk about inclusion, we mean new immigrants, we mean Aboriginals and First Nation community, we mean social economic, and we mean those that are the so-called brightest and gifted as well. That inclusion can't be just about disability and some small minority group. It is a much broader concept where we need to, in terms of facing the new economy, welcome new immigrants, build up our Aboriginal First Nation, give our socioeconomic issues a chance, and also support the brightest and the so-called gifted.
Minister Cobb, maybe one more question for now, and then we'll move on to some others. We've been getting a number of comments today from people who recognize your obvious leadership and commitment to inclusive education. And I think a little enviously, I suspect they're writing from other parts of the country, are wondering how you can share your leadership with other provinces, how other provinces can learn from what New Brunswick has accomplished, and how you can help influence the agenda nationally. One specific question that's come from one participant is, is there anything that you can do at the table of the Council of Ministers of Education to advance this agenda and build their leadership as well?
Very much so. I think that is about building collaboration and partnership, and finding like-minded partners across our country, and we need to use all the forums that we can to keep moving the issue forward and not make it an issue about either or, as you've stated earlier. It has to be part of the package, that this is just what we are and what we do. It becomes a normal process. It's not an easy process to ensure we we have inclusion in our classrooms, but it's one that we want to make as not an either or, that it's a fundamental right as has been demonstrated under the United Nations Convention, and that it is about diversity and respect. And who is it for any one person to choose who gets an education and who doesn't get a quality education? It's about finding those processes and supporting all to make sure that we do have the best education for all and the best opportunities. And if I can certainly, I've already had a couple of conversations with the partners under CMEC. I could not attend the most recent meeting in Toronto as I was working on budget here back in New Brunswick, because we have some of these challenges I do not want to see fall by the wayside here in our province. But we can work together, and I think there are opportunities to be able to push this forward onto the national agenda through CMEC. But we got to remember too that it's people that will try to suggest that having a separate segregated system will save us money. And time again, it does not save us money to have a separate parallel system for the segregated students. You have additional schools, you have additional administrators. We're about now actually an opportunity with our fiscal restraint is to say, why have 2 and 3 parallel systems? We need one system where we share administration, where we provide skills and training to our teachers so that we're teaching the full diverse classroom. Having segregation has not been proven to be cost efficient, and so there are advantages from a fiscal perspective as well to have an inclusive system. But that doesn't mean that there's endless dollars as well. I think of Dr. Gordon Porter, who was an administrator in the Woodstock district in New Brunswick, and before we had legislation, he was providing leadership in his district without additional resources to make it work. So first the values, then yes, there will need to be dollars, and in the dollars that we do have, we have to spend more efficiently, and that means perhaps having less administration and less duplication in a segregated system.
So there's an economic argument for inclusion as well.
There's definitely economic, because you're reaching to a diverse population that need to all move forward, but also we cannot afford parallel administrative systems to support a segregation system and the so-called normal system. We can find cost efficiencies by having one system.
Okay. Thank you, Minister Carr.